Hey, hello there. Welcome to the Go There on Fourth video podcast. I'm the Dirt Path Pastor, Pastor Jason Barnett. This is a Christian podcast on faith, football, and fantasy football. And again, just as a disclaimer, I am not so much an expert as I am just a football junkie. I love the game of football. And so I just thought I'd make a podcast talking about it so you can take my points and my thoughts for what they are. Just an added fan doing his best to guess and share with you his thoughts on it. And what I'm doing through this football season, as I'm journeying through the fantasy football side of things, I'm going to share with you my struggles in setting my lineup. And today and every Tuesday, I will recap how I did. Thursdays, I'll share my picks for the week and share my thoughts as I'm finalizing my lineup for the week. But Tuesdays, like today, I'm going to recap both my picks and setting my lineup. So here are my picks. Here's how I did on my picks for the Thursday night and early Sunday games this last week. The Bills versus the Rams. I picked the Rams to win that one. And no surprise, I'm not really surprised I got that one wrong. I'm more surprised how wrong I got that one. I was not expecting to see the defending champions get whooped up on that bad in their home stadium, coming on, looking to set the tone for perhaps maybe a repeat run. But now we see how hard it is to win in consecutive years, and I don't know where the Rams are going to go from here. I think they need some more weapons on the outside. I don't think the offense looks the same without Odell Beckham in there, and some of those other missing pieces. So I got that one wrong. Saints versus Falcons. I picked the Saints to win, so I got that one right. 49ers versus the Bears. I picked the Bears to win that one, and the Bears won. I didn't get to watch that game, but it looked like it was a lot of fun. I played in a game like that in middle school where it was just raining buckets from the sky, and the players on the sideline, were using the field as a slip and slide. I don't remember how the game went, but I remember sliding up and down the field. But yes, I picked the Bears to win that one, and the Bears did win. Steelers versus the Bengals. And unfortunately, here I made a deal with the church here that the team that had the most representation in our church last week. We had a team Sunday where you could come to church wearing your favorite NFL team gear, and then I threw out the disclaimer that the team with the most representation there, I would decorate my office with that team's gears. And unfortunately, the Steelers had the most representation. I'm here in Eastern Kentucky, so I thought maybe the Bengals, but no, there was a lot of Bengals fans. I was the lone Colts fan here. My wife dressed in a Colts shirt, but I haven't fully converted her yet. Notice I said yet, though. But with that being said, Steelers versus the Bengals. We all stayed after church to watch this game, and boy, it was a roller coaster. And I picked the Bengals to win. I thought, they look good. I mean, in the back of my mind, I was nervous about it because I know the history of the team that goes to the Super Bowl and doesn't win. They tend to do poorly the very next season. But I thought, no, Joe Burrow's young. It was a young team. They're going to bounce back and start the season off strong against the Steelers, who are starting Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, and I got that one wrong. But in fairness, who could predict that Burrow was going to throw 4 interceptions? Who was going to guess that we heard, we got to watch kickers just miss kicks and block field goals and all the insanity that was that game. That was a fantastic football game. But unfortunately, I got that pick wrong as the Steelers won that one. Eagles versus the Lions. I picked the Eagles to win that one. I got that one right. Patriots versus the Dolphins. I picked the Dolphins, and so I got that one right. I mean, I was super nervous because I'm excited for the Dolphins this year. I have Tyreek Hill on my fantasy team, and I really, I didn't want to be excited for the Dolphins because they get hyped up every week, a lot in the recent years, and then they tend to underwhelm. But this time they took care of business. They beat the Patriots. And there's a lot of talk right now about, maybe perhaps this is the end of the Patriots run, with Bill Belichick, and he's kind of wrapping things up. I'm not quite ready to count the Patriots out yet. It was the first game of the year. Yes, Matt Patricia is their offensive coordinator, so there's some reasons to be concerned there. But hey, however, Patricia was a head coach for the Lions last year, so while he became a head coach, but from being a defensive coordinator, surely he learned something about running offense along the way while he was being a head coach. But I'm not ready to count the Patriots out completely yet. They're still Bill Belichick coached. They're still the Patriots. So we'll give it a few weeks before I begin hitting the eject button on their season. but I got that pick right. Ravens versus the Jets. No surprise there. I picked the Ravens to win, and I'm sure as most of you did, and the Jets were pretty much the Jets. Next one, Jaguars versus Commanders. I picked the Jaguars to win because it was Carson Wentz versus the Jaguars, and I was almost right. I thought I was going to be really wrong for most of that game. And Carson Wentz he took the Commanders and their fan base on a roller coaster ride of emotions. He looked really good. He looked really bad. Then he looked really good again, and they won the game, but just barely. So enjoy the ride this season, Commanders fans. I'm here to support you as a Colts fan as you are going on that journey this season. But I got that pick wrong. Browns versus the Panthers. I really thought Baker Mayfield was going to wreak revenge upon the Browns. I guess part of it was wishful thinking. I wanted to see him, pump his chest and do the taunting moves in front of the sideline, plant flags places like he did in college against his former team. But it didn't work out. The Browns won that one. Colts versus the Texans. I picked the Colts to win, and guess what? I was neither right or wrong. Nobody won. It was a tie. As a Colts fan, I'm very sad. As a person who's picking games, I was happy that I wasn't wrong. Now, a lot of Colts fans, they are getting really excited right now, and they're wanting to burn down the village. And by that, I mean they're wanting to fire Ballard. They're wanting to fire Frank Reich. They're wanting to give Blankenship, our kicker, his packing papers. The only one I might agree with is maybe that one because he did struggle a little bit last year before he got hurt. But it's only week one. I'm not quite ready to hit the panic button yet. Our offense did gain 500 yards of offense, and I'm not sure we did that really at any point last season. Jonathan Taylor still looked like Jonathan Taylor, and Matt Ryan, despite some miscues and miscommunications and some mishaps, he still managed to get us and keep us in the game. So there's lots of reasons to be excited as a Colts fan. I'm hoping to see some more growth from that young receiver core. I'm hoping our defense plays a little bit better moving forward, but they weren't terrible. There was just a lot of blown coverages, and we were missing Shaquille Leonard, our best linebacker. So that's going to hurt you. So I'm not ready to bring down the village yet. So that's my early picks. Tossing out the tie game between the Colts and the Texans, I went 5 out of 9 in the early games. 5 out of 9. So that wasn't bad. All right, so I'm going to share a brief devotional with you. This is I'm going to be looking at Luke chapter 1, verses 35 through 37. And one of the reasons why I love fantasy football is you can look at the numbers and build a team based on the numbers. And when I'm building my team, when I'm going through the draft, I tend to shy away from players that are on different teams, players that are in new environments, because their stats are different because they're in a different location now. They've shifted from college to the NFL. If they're a rookie, you don't really have a lot to go on. But if you focus on the numbers, you focus on the stats, you can usually pick a pretty good team. But even that, having all the stats, having all the analysis, what I love about fantasy football is yes, you can use those things, but then it's just completely unpredictable. I mean, you can be right and then be more right than you thought you were. You can be right and still be wrong. You can be wrong and still end up being right, or you can be wrong and then really wrong, and it turns out really wrong. And that's what I love about fantasy football. You just never know what's going to happen. And as you're playing against people, they may have the best team in the league, but if they're not watching their lineups and paying attention carefully to setting the lineups, it may not work out for them. But what I love, again, when you're setting a lineup, another thing I love about it is, pretty much any app you'll use nowadays, they have a projected number what they think that player is going to score. And a lot of times that number's, it's just a guess, but sometimes it's right, sometimes it's a little wrong, sometimes it's better than what you thought it was going to be. And the only time that's bad is if you got you benched the person because you thought, hey, the experts are saying this, so I'm going to go with the experts are saying. And then it turns out they're wrong. But that's what I love about fantasy football. It's just so unpredictable. It's so much fun. And I think it's a way that we kind of come together as people, too, in groups and compete against each other. But the reason I talk about the unpredictability of that is sometimes that can be frustrating, right? And as I was thinking about what devotion to share with you all for this week, for this Tuesday edition, I was reading in Luke, and I came across this passage about the Virgin Mary, right? And she's the one that gives birth to Jesus. And most of us know that story, how it takes place, and the angel comes to her at nighttime and just tells her, hey, God says you're going to have a baby. You're going to get pregnant. Which, for Mary, that's interesting because she's engaged to be married to a man named Joseph, right? And she's called the Virgin Mary for a reason at this point. She's not slept with anyone yet. She's a virgin. And this angel comes to her. She's engaged to be married to somebody, but those two haven't been together yet. And the angel tells her, you're going to be pregnant. And the angel is telling her, you're going to be pregnant, and this is good news. But now if you're sitting in Mary's shoes and this angel is telling you that God's saying that you're going to get pregnant, that's not so much good news. It's scary news. Because this culture is different than the culture you and I live in right now. This culture, she could be stoned for this. There's a good chance that her engagement to Joseph is going to be broken off. At worst, if she's not stoned to death, she's going to be exiled. She's going to be excommunicated. She's going to be looked down upon. She's going to be mistreated because of all this. So while the angel is telling her that this is good news to Mary, as she's processing it, she's like, this isn't as good a news as I thought it was going to be. Mr. Angel, you're projecting this because God told you this, but it doesn't seem like it to me. So she's kind of doubting the goodness of what's taking place here. But this is the conversation that takes place between her and the angels in Luke chapter 1, verses 35 through 37. It says, the angel replied to her, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. And consider this, your relative Elizabeth, even she has conceived a son in her old age, and this is the 6th month for her who was called childless. For nothing will be impossible with God. So even though Mary is doubting that this is good news, that this is a good thing, she's looking at the projection the angel is giving her, and she is doubting it. She is unsure about it. The angel reassures her and reminds her who it is that's making this promise to her. It's not the angel. This projection isn't coming from the angel. This projection is coming from God through his Holy Spirit. And when God tells you something, it's going to come true. No matter how crazy it is, no matter how impossible it seems, when God tells you it's going to happen, you can believe that it is going to happen. Now, when we're looking at the scriptures, we come across so many of God's promises in the Bible. We read them and we wrestle with what they're saying. And in some ways, we believe those promises. We believe it's God's word. We believe it to be true. But when you're in the midst of a battle in your life, when you're dealing with pain, when you're surrounded by darkness, it's hard to remember those things. It's kind of like looking at your fantasy football projections and seeing the actual score take place. It's easy to doubt. It's easy to become uncertain and unsettled. But remember, God's projections are not like those experts' projections that you're looking at. These are the words of God. And they're going to come true, no matter how crazy it is, no matter how impossible it seems. If you and I stay close with God and we walk beside him, his promises will become a reality in our life. Hey, if you enjoyed that devotional, I encourage you to join me here at the Ravenna Church of the Nazarene. That's where I'm recording. I'm here on the Ravenna Church of the Nazarene campus here in Ravenna, Kentucky. We're located at 530 Main Street, Ravenna, Kentucky. I invite you to join us. Our service starts at 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings. We would love to have you with us. If you can't join us in person, you can watch us online on our Facebook page. Be sure to check out our website, ravnaz.com. All right, let's continue on with my picks for last week and examining the picks that I made. Here are my late Sunday games. All right, I picked in the Giants versus the Titans. I picked the Titans to win, and let's just say it didn't happen that way. The Giants shocked the world. It was like the movie The Little Giants. They somehow found a way to win. It's kind of encouraged me to start a Rascal Flatts parody band called Flat Rascals, and singing, because this game added another verse to the song of what happened about NFL kickers this last week. There was just so much drama with kickers. I feel like there's a song in there somewhere. Anyway, so thanks, kickers. You ruined yet another game for me. All right, Packers versus the Vikings. I picked the Vikings to win, and they won. And hey, Viking fans, if you're watching this, I know your hopes are up. New coach, new season, big win at the beginning of the year. You beat your rivals, the Packers. Congratulations. Just know, your team is still the Vikings. So while your hopes are up, and it's good to have hope, it's good to believe, remember, in the back of your mind, remember, you're still the Vikings. All right, Chiefs versus the Cardinals. And the Chiefs won. The Chiefs won that one just like I picked them to. And for those of you that are TikTokers, I encourage you. There was an awesome TikTok video on Kyler earlier this week that pointed out why having a disclaimer or a thing in his contract about him having to watch film was important. Because if he had watched film this last week, there have been a couple of hits where he would have probably changed the play and avoided it. But because he doesn't watch film like he should, bad things happened. Anyway, so there's an awesome TikTok video on that. So I encourage you, if you find it, come across it, watch it. It's good. But the Chiefs beat the Cardinals. I picked that one right. Raiders versus the Chargers. I picked the Chargers to win, and the Chargers won. Herbert was the fourth highest scoring quarterback in my fantasy league this week. So I'm not surprised that the Chargers won, even though I started Derek Carr. I don't have Justin Herbert on my team. It might have helped if I had. All right. So on the late games, the 4 games that were played, I went 3 of 4 on those late ones, which brings me to 8 out of 13 on my picks. So I've got 8 right out of the 13 possible. All right. So now we're moving into the segment where I'm going to share about what happened with my team. And if you've watched the Thursday video, I kind of shared that I'm at least called the Mighty Managing Armchair Rangers. It's a league it's a 12-team PPR league with some custom scoring. It's full of church folks and some friends. And I shared with you my dilemmas for last week. And my first dilemma was whether to start Russell Wilson or Derek Carr. I knew Russell Wilson was going to Seattle. He was facing his old team. The Seahawks last year, they had an okay defense. They only 2 games of 0 or negative points, which is solid for a defense. But I know it's Russell Wilson. It's Russell Wilson, and meanwhile, I was trying to, debating between him and Derek Carr. Derek Carr was going against the Chargers. He was projected higher than Wilson. Last year against the Chargers, he threw for about 190 yards both games and 2 touchdowns in both games. And only one of those games he threw an interception. But despite that, I stuck with Wilson. At least that was the plan I shared with you all. But after I ended the video, and as I was leading into the Thursday night games, I got a trade offer. There was another team in our league that they were very QB needy. The only QB they had on their roster, and it's because they didn't show up for the draft, and then the auto picked for them. And you don't know what happens when auto picks for you. And so the only quarterback he had on his roster was Justin Fields. So because I had Derek Carr and Russell Wilson, but I also felt like my receiving corps needed help, I traded Russell Wilson. But I traded Russell Wilson, and I traded Russell Wilson along with Chris Olave. And I got Justin Fields, Keenan Allen, and Deontay Johnson. So I kind of boosted my weaker receiving corps by trading away Russell Wilson and Olave. Even though Olave was a solid prospect, again, he was one of those where it's kind of like, and Carr ended up putting up 50 points for me. So I felt like I came out okay in that trade. Again, it helped me settle that QB decision and boosted my receiving corps, at least I thought. Which brings me to my second dilemma. My second dilemma I shared with you all in my Thursday video was whether I was going to start Michael Carter at the flex. It was the Jets versus the Falcons. And we know how the score went. It was the Falcons 24, the Jets 9. But the Jets have to try and do something on offense. Even though the Ravens have a strong defense last season, they're not gonna throw the ball a ton, right? Which I think they ended up doing. But Carter was kind of supposed to split carries. He split carries last year. He ended up splitting carries Sunday, but he ended up getting the bulk of them. And in my other options, I had Mooney with the Bears. I had Moore with the Panthers. I had Olave with the Saints, which I told you what happened to Olave. And I had Nyheim Hines with the Colts. Those were all good, viable other options to go with the flex. But when I ended the video with you all, my decision was to go with Olave. And remember what happened. I traded Olave, which was okay. He only ended up scoring 9 points, even though the person I traded to started him. That person got an L in their column this week. Deontay Johnson, he scored 13 points in my league. Michael Carter, however, he scored 27.9. But the downside for me was, and I didn't start Johnson, and I didn't start Carter either. They both were on the bench, as I went with Keenan Allen. And in the first half Sunday, Keenan Allen scored 11 points, so I was feeling pretty good about it. And then the hamstring happened, and he didn't come back out. So that really kind of deflated my team. So after all that struggle, all that dilemma, I went with Keenan Allen at the flex. He plays a half of football, scores 11 points, and that's it. In the end, none of it really mattered. That debate, that struggle didn't matter in the end because even if I had started my best possible lineup, I played the team that scored the most points in our league in week 1. And what didn't help my cause was I started Renfro, the receiver from the Oakland Raiders, and he only scored 5 points. I started Hunter Henry from the Patriots offense that tied in there, and he only scored 4 points. A 5 point from a receiver and 4 point from your tight end, that kind of deflates your score like Tom Brady's ball boy does the footballs. It just deflates things. So I start my season off 0-1. So this week, between now and Thursday at some point, I will be shopping for a tight end, and actually I have one that I've put a waiver claim on. Hopefully I picked him up, and I'll share that with you on Thursday if it happens. So that was my struggles, but that's how it worked out. Well, what about you? How things go for you with your team? Huh? Anyway, we'll come to that in a minute. All right, primetime picks. All right, there's 2 primetime games, the Sunday night and the Monday night game. For Sunday night, it was the Buccaneers versus the Cowboys. I picked the Buccaneers. If you have any friends who are Cowboys fans, I would check on them right now. Whatever you're doing, if you're watching this video, hit the pause button. It's going to be saved in YouTube, so you don't have to catch it live. But hit the pause button, go back, call up your Cowboys friends and just say, hey, are you okay? Send them a Facebook message and say, hey, I love you, buddy. I'm here. Just let them know you're there and you care. Because not only do they start the season off with an L, but now Dak Prescott broke his thumb and he's going to be gone for a little bit. So check on your Cowboys fans. But I got that pick right. I picked the Buccaneers to win. All right. Monday night game, and this is the game where I thought for sure I had it right. It was the Broncos versus the Seahawks. I thought for sure it was right. I knew Wilson was going up against the Seahawks in Seattle. I know how loud the Seattle stadium gets. And I knew the familiarity with Russell Wilson on the defense might play a factor. And I kind of thought, the Seahawks are starting Geno Smith. How exciting could it get? But boy, was I wrong. Geno Smith played great. They didn't play as strong in the second half as they did the first, but they looked pretty decent most of the game. Then the Broncos made some questionable decisions down the stretch. I'm still not sure why they let the time run down to call timeout and kick a 64-yard field goal. I know it was 4th down. There was a risk involved. But look how it happened. Especially this weekend when we have the story of the kicker who kicked the ball and hit the goalpost or didn't hit anything at all. That happened over and over again. It was like the Groundhog Day of NFL weekends, but only it was kickers and not the Groundhog's Day. But the Broncos gambled and it didn't work out. Part of me thinks what happened was, if you watched the game, you probably noticed how bright green the Seahawks uniforms were. They were like the Seattle Sea Highlighters. That's what they look like. This giant highlighters running around the field. And part of me wants to think between the loud crowd noise and the bright uniforms that it just kind of put the Broncos with the sensory overload, right? You have all this noise happening, you have all this movement going around, and then these bright jerseys. So your sensory is overloaded with all that stuff. So perhaps that's what happened. And that's why I got that pick wrong, because I picked the Broncos to win. And the Seahawks did. But the Seahawks, they just played great. So I split the primetime games. And so overall, I went 9-15 on the week. That's, again, if you toss out the tie between the Colts and the Texans. So I get a 60% for week 1, which is just fantastic, right? It's a big, giant F for week 1. Hopefully, I'll do better for week 2. Although I will say I'm still in my ESPN groups I'm in for the picks, I still ended up in the 90th percentile. So I was pretty pumped about that. So how'd you do? Do you have any questions about faith or football? Send them in. Any sit dilemmas I can help you mess up, please post them in the comments and help me out by liking and sharing this video. Be sure to check out my podcast. It's called the Dirt Path Sermon Podcast. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, Audible, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find the Dirt Path Sermon Podcast. And be sure to follow me on TikTok, where I post daily devotional videos as we're journeying through the Bible together. I do that Monday through Friday. So follow me on TikTok. I'm known as #the Dirt Path Pastor. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on Thursday.